Robbie, you need...
And so it sits really heavily on the backbeat of stuff, and it's just insane. I love it.
Make it scream. Actually, I have to cut this because I can't remember his name.
I may get death threats for this.
Because I'm going to come round your house on my horse.
Robbie, you have to fucking go.
Insane, incredible, and will up your musicianship overnight.
Get down, get down, get down.
Take two.
For today's insight into finger drumming, Christian is using the Studio Drum sound pack from Crow Hill. Part of their absolutely free range of sounds for everyone and for always.
The reason I finger drum is not for showing offy performance purposes, although it's a lot of fun. It's to get my drum ideas into the door. For me, composition is about playing stuff in on a keyboard, even if it isn't an instrument that I know how to play. The key to finger drumming is the same for any virtual instrument. Empathy. So understanding how the thing works, how it's played, what is possible and what isn't possible. Doesn't sound real, not just because it's a crap beat, but because in order to play that, would have to have 3 arms. There's an interesting track on Weather Report's Heavy Weather, where the bassist and composer, Jaco Pastorius, is also playing drums. And there's something that just has always beguiled me about that track, but if you listen to it, you'll realise that the hi-hat, this closed cymbal, and the kick and snare have actually been overtracked because there's stuff that's simply impossible to play if you've just got the 2 hands.
John Guerin, I believe that he laid the pathway for hybrid orchestral scores. His multi-tempo work on the Dirty Harry score is just unbelievable, and I would say that he's the best session drummer I've ever heard.
It's Graham Costello, who plays in the Glasgow-based band Corta Alto, who are absolutely amazing, doing incredible things. Graham is the driving force behind that sound. He works with really intricate subdivisions and polyrhythms and creates beautiful textures with the drum kit, and I think that's why I love his playing so much, because it's so textural.
Jorge Rossi, who played with the Brad Mehldau trio. He's a jazz drummer, and I really like his rhythmical accuracy and his taste.
Danielle Haim from Haim. I think she's really good at mixing up the kind of beats she plays, and I really like how she plays and sings at the same time.
Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He was on Jimmy Fallon once with Will Ferrell, and they look alike, and he went on and just absolutely tore it up.
Dave Grohl, that Nirvana drum sound back then was pretty iconic.
And then the other thing you simply have to work on is coordination. It's kind of a little bit like this, and it's just a question of practice. You don't need to be at your keyboard to practice. Just doing that will naturally frustrate your flatmates with kick, side stick, snare, little rough there, rim shot, and then you've got toms, hi-hat, pedal hat, open hat, and then some cymbally stuff up there. So the backbeat, and I don't know why it's called that, is simply marking time. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The hi-hat subdivides that into quavers or eighth notes, so it's 2 notes for every note of the backbeat. And that's the fundamental of most pop music, that backbeat. And if you do study some amazing drummers, I think the one thing that it will help you with is understanding how close to that backbeat people play and how they make it sound interesting, how they make it groovy, but also how they don't overcomplicate stuff. You may find it easier to start with the subdivision. And what you might want to do is swap out one of these subdivisions with an open hi-hat. This closed pair of cymbals is opened, and that's done with your foot. But again, this is where we depart from what actual drummers do because we are playing it in with our fingers. So let's start that again. So I'm playing something fairly straight, fairly in time, a way of making things feel more groovy without changing the timings. Keeping this straight backbeat is to concentrate on the various volumes that you have available in the hi-hat and how you accent that. So already starting to sound more human. Another thing that drummers do to make things a bit more interesting is instead of hitting more notes, what they'll do is they'll bounce a few notes. Most modern drummers will hit the snare on the rim shot, so the stick is hitting the rim and the skin of the snare simultaneously. But then what they'll do is bounce notes in between. So let's start with some ghost notes. And they'll also do the same with the kick drum. So instead of smacking it down, they'll allow the pedal to bounce. Now, changing the beat, you'll often find that the snare will always fall on 2 and 4. And it's in fact just the kick drum pattern that changes, often to fit with the bass line that the bassist is playing. What I'm going to do is keep the snares nice and straight, but change up the kick drum pattern, and you'll see it fundamentally changes the drum beat. But the snare, other than the ghost notes, little bouncy notes, is still playing just 2 and 4. I think one of the hardest things to do finger drumming is to then go around the racks, which are the toms. Drummers manage to keep the machine of the drums going. So often you'll hear bad finger drumming, which will be which basically means everything stops for you concentrating your fingers on the toms. But conversely, if you keep the drum beat going, it's doing something that is not possible for a player to play. Often when you do fills, the pedal hi-hat will carry on going. I tend to favour doing more funky fills that are just variations on snare, hi-hats, and kick parts, and then I'll go in and program the fills, or maybe I'll just do something a bit crap and then decorate it so it sounds a bit more, I don't know, real. So a snare fill. Something simple like that. There's often times where drummers will switch to ride, so come off the snare and hit the bell or just the side of a ride cymbal that isn't full-on crashing, but more. Same thing applies as with a hi-hat. It's all to do with the way that you accent. Just sounds like a machine, but if it's But again, most drummers will carry on stomping on their left foot pedal on the hi-hat, which is why this sounds a bit empty. Now, this is virtually impossible to play. So again, those are considerations that you might want to consider for post. I guess the other thing to consider is where the notes go. Forget the name of the drummer, but Kool and the Gang, Jungle Boogie. I'm absolutely certain it inspired Bonham on Kashmir. Maybe chronologically that's not possible, but get down, get down, get down, down, get down, get down.
Number 2, probably Ginger Baker. Really like his style on and off the drum kit. He's from Cream and from, I would say honourable mention is from Fela Kuti as well as loads of other bands, but I really like what he did for African jazz and just jazz in general.
Jimmy Chamberlain, who plays in the Smashing Pumpkins, originally a jazz drummer, but Smashing Pumpkins are obviously more kind of shoegazy rock band, but he brings a kind of jazz flair to that genre, which is particularly evident in his fills.
Danielle Haim, because she has the most insane feel, and for me it's all about the groove, it's all about the feel, and she has that in bucket loads, and so it sits really heavily on the backbeat of stuff, and it's just insane. I love it.
Dave Grohl, he's just relentless on the kit. You know, the range that he has, you can literally put anything in front of him and he'll make it scream.
Donald Johnson Jr., who's the drummer for, I'm going to make a mess of this, Khruangbin. There you go. There's three to pick from in there. I've not really heard a drummer that makes a song feel just so glued together like him before, and just the way that he sits in the mix is really cool.
I think one of John Guerin's tricks was the massively tightened kit, so he would cut through the orchestra. That's something that Stuart Copeland also understood, was to really tighten his drums. They may sound ba-doo, 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 as opposed to ba-dum. It would mean that he would then cut through on the records. He's a man who doesn't play his snare on the 2 and the 4. Incredibly inventive drummer, a symphonic composer in drummer form.
An exercise which you can do, which is really helpful for working on timing, is to get your tempo up. It's difficult working with a metronome. If you can hear it, it basically means that you're playing out of time. So it's about understanding how your body coordinates so that it is in time. And a really good way of doing that is to go slow. Once you get comfortable going slower, go slower still. And slower still. By doing like a daily exercise like that, you will find that you improve your timing immeasurably when you take it all the way back up. There was a guy who taught me how to do this. That took me about a year, but I started slow. I'm out of practice. But these kind of coordination things, the rhythm of life, it's to do with our heartbeat, the blood flowing, the molecules and synapses, all of that kind of stuff. It is something that you simply have to practice.
I may get death threats for this.
Joey Jordison, the former Slipknot drummer, I've heard people say that he played loose, and I guess maybe they're coming from a much more kind of fine-tuned perspective, but to me, he sounded really tight and had this insane, like, paper-thin snare sound, which I just haven't heard anyone else ever have.
Annika Niles, German drummer. If you want to have your mind blown, go and check out some of her polyrhythms on her Instagram page and her tutorials on these. Insane, incredible, and will up your musicianship overnight.
Paul Motian, who plays with my favourite guitarist, Bill Frisell, and I like his sense of space, how much space he leaves for the other instrumentalists in the band as well.
Matt Cameron from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. When I was growing up as a kid, me and my friend would be making noise in his garage and we'd always be playing Soundgarden.
Going in with a bit of a controversial one here, Ringo Starr, most famous for Peace and Love, and secondly, the Beatles. The way he just navigates the kit is it's unconventional, but it has defined what we know as the modern music genre.
I'd love to be clever about this, but it has to be John Bonham, because Led Zeppelin were an R&B band. They played blues music, but in the slightly impatient way that British people do anything that's American. I may get death threats for this, but I would state my case that John Bonham is the greatest funk drummer ever to have lived.
Just one rule. I just beg of you, don't change the 2 and the 4 with the snare and push it. Because if you do, I hope you can run fast, because I'm going to come round your house on my horse and I'm going to chase you down the street, hunting you through your neighbourhood.
Today's drum sounds were provided by the Vault Studio Drums. If you fancy picking them up, they are absolutely free. Check out the Vault's range at thecrowhillcompany.com.